Alrighty, welcome back everyone. We just talked about that Florida job that is being very mysterious right about now. We will obviously keep you updated as it goes on, but it might take a little bit to get that new head coach down there in Gainesville, Florida. But let's get into a little bit of a week 4 whip around. We have a number of things that I want to get to, including a couple of games that are going to happen this upcoming weekend, and then we got to get to the game that happened yesterday. So let's jump in here, and this game was crazy. There were a number of different things that happened in this game that I did not expect by any means, and probably the biggest one was the score. South Alabama just railroads App State 48-14, and this was one where I had the over in this game, and it was 62.5. So I missed this by a missed extra point. Very tough start to the weekend for the best bets, but we will get you the rest of them later in the show, and hopefully they go a little bit better than this one did. This was a very, very interesting game, one that App State just had absolutely no answer from the very start to the very end. Gio Lopez was all over them all night. He went for 16 for 24, 154, and 2 touchdowns through the air, 7 carries, 105 yards, and a score on the ground. He was all over the place, was absolutely incredible. In fact, South Alabama ran for 320 and 5 touchdowns on 43 carries. So they just battered them. They ran the ball down their throat the entire day, and now the question becomes, how impressive was that win for Clemson? How big of a deal was it that Clemson went in there and absolutely tore them to pieces? Because this defense does not look very good. It looks like it's a little bit all over the place, and we'll get into Clemson here in a little bit, but one of those things that we'll have to be watching for this weekend, maybe that Clemson win and maybe that Clemson offense is not quite what they showed us against App State. Then we got Florida against Mississippi State, and man, if you want to watch a gross football game, tune into this one. This is going to be just hard to watch in a number of different ways. Now, I'm going to be watching it, don't get me wrong, because I want to see how all this goes down, but Florida is favored by 6 points in this game. 58.5 is the over-under, and I think there's one of those things where Florida's got to be able to pick a quarterback in this game. I understand you want to get both guys run, and frankly, I think Mertz would be the better option in this atmosphere with all of the different variables. But on the other side, again, as we've talked about on here, Billy Napier's not in the position where he can just make football decisions. He has to be able to cater to this fan base just a little bit, and I would argue that at least the majority of the fan base would rather see G.J. Lagway out there. So we'll see what happens with that. On the Mississippi State side, it's all about that tempo. They're going to be able to at least try to speed up that Florida defense, and we'll see what happens right now. Frankly, I'm having a hard time seeing Mississippi State beat just about anyone in the SEC, so I am going to lean Florida in this game, but this is one of those that you're in between a rock and a hard place. I have no desire to pick this game one way or the other. I do think they get a win. I do think Billy Napier stays safe just for a little bit longer, but man, if you tune into this one, just might want to cover your eyes just for a little bit to give yourself a little bit of a break. But UCLA at LSU is a very fun game as well. UCLA is reeling right now. There's no other way to put it. They're kind of all over the place. The O-line has been really struggling. Their defense has been all over the place. Gave up 42 to Indiana this past weekend. They have just about nothing going for them. They have TJ Harden in that backfield. They have Ethan Garbers, who has been a quarterback there for quite some time. They have J. Michael Sturdivant on the outside. They can't do any of that because the O-line and the D-line are just not good enough. So they're in a position where they're probably not going to do very well this year, and that was the sentiment going into the year. It might be uglier than we thought it was. I saw that I believe Buffalo Wild Wings over there in LA is giving out free wings if they get a win. They might not get free wings this year, and I'll just leave it at that for the time being, and we'll see what happens with them going forward. I do think LSU's kind of out to make a statement in this game. Everyone talking about that South Carolina game from this past week is all about, South Carolina got hosed. I was trying to pick the right word there. South Carolina got a couple of calls that went against them. LSU got a couple of calls that went for them, and that's why they won the game. And yes, that absolutely played a portion in this game. I think they want to prove to everyone that that was not a mirage, that they are capable of playing those hard-nosed games, that they can come back in, and frankly, I think this might just be one where LSU wins by just a ton in this game, just to flex their muscles a little bit as they head into the SEC schedule. An SEC game that's happening this weekend is Arkansas heading over to Auburn. This one's fascinating for a number of reasons, but mainly because neither of these defenses I have a lot of confidence in. I think both of them can be exposed, especially downfield in the passing game, and both these teams like to do that. Now, Taylor Green does have to take a step forward throwing the ball, and we'll figure out what's going on with him on Saturday, but overall, I think this is one of those games where you're going to have Arkansas that is going to be able to run the ball. That's what they're going to do. They're going to have Jaquindon Jackson. They're going to bring in that fullback that they have that I'm blanking on his name, but incredible player nonetheless. They're going to have Taylon Green on the outside. They're going to be able to run the ball. And then Auburn, with Hank Brown at quarterback, is likely going to be able to throw the ball downfield. Arkansas is without their best cornerback this upcoming weekend. They're going to have to be able to really clamp up on that back end. I don't know if they're capable of doing that. And then Hank Brown, all of this year is kind of an audition, right? He was very, very clean against New Mexico. There were a couple of little mistakes that you'd love to see get better, but as of right now, he's just competing for that 2025 starting job, which sounds kind of crazy, but that's kind of the way Auburn's looking at the rest of the season is, load up, get everything good on tape as you possibly can, and then attack everything in 2025. At least that's the read that I have on it. Maybe they can get a little run going and then things change, but as of right now, I think they are leaning towards, let's figure out if Hank Brown is the guy going forward. If he's not, we'll go out and get a portal guy and we'll really attack it in 2025. But a really, really fun game here. I think I'd lean Auburn, but this one's going to be really fun and frankly, I think going to be up and down quite a bit. And then you got this game. I called this one yesterday the most fun game of the weekend, and I very much mean it. I think this is one of those games where it doesn't matter who you're a fan of, it doesn't matter how much football you like, you're going to enjoy this one because there's going to be a ton of points in this one. They are going to get after each other quite a bit. Now, they're probably going to get after each other with the run game. Cam Scatterbo on one side with Arizona State has been one of the best running backs in the country to this point. Texas Tech has finally gotten Taj Brooks in on the conversation, so they're being able to run the ball really effectively right now, and Baron Morton has found a groove in that offense. A lot of things are going right for both these offenses. Not a lot of things are going right for the defenses. Now, Arizona State is probably in a little bit better of a spot, although Texas Tech did a great job against North Texas past weekend. There are a number of things in this game that just lean me towards this could be a double overtime, triple overtime, 58 to 56 type game. It's going to be all over the place, and we'll see if Arizona State can get that first win in the first game of their Big 12 careers. And then we have a game that's the battle for DFW. Going to be a really, really fun game out there in Dallas for SMU TCU. TCU coming off a very tough loss to UCF where they likely should have been able to close that one out, but fall by 1 point. SMU is coming off just disappointing weeks the last couple of weeks, are coming off a bye after playing in week 0 and then having the bye after a really tough performance against BYU. We'll see what happens with this team, but it sounds like they've settled into Kevin Jennings being their starter at quarterback, and I think that's probably the right decision. I think both quarterbacks are roughly the same throwing the ball. Maybe Preston Stone has a slight edge, but SMU is now in the business of just having as many weapons on the field as possible, and Kevin Jennings is a bigger weapon running the ball than Preston Stone is, so I tend to agree with that, elevating him to the full-time starter. It'll be really interesting to see what he can do on Saturday because technically everything's still on the table for SMU. Technically nothing has changed about what they can do this upcoming year. They just haven't looked near where they need to be for them to be able to pull all that off. So we'll see what happens on Saturday. I'd probably lean TCU in this game, although they really need to find a run game. They got to get Cam Cook more involved, and they had 400 passing yards against UCF. Still weren't able to win that game because when you can't run the ball, you're going to have a really tough time winning those really close games down the stretch. So it's going to be really awesome to watch this game unfold. Again, I'd lean TCU in this game just because SMU has been just incredibly sloppy up until this point, but definitely will be a really fun game, and whoever wins it definitely will have some bragging rights in that neck of the woods. And then you have Miami heading to USF. This is one of my favorite games of the weekend because I think we're going to learn a lot about Miami. We know this USF team is capable of playing with pretty much any team in the country. They went over to Tuscaloosa and played a big-time game against Alabama where they were down 1 point going into the fourth quarter. Miami's coming to their place now, and they have all the motivation in the world to win this game because the reality is they're probably not getting into the CFP with 2 losses, and that's very much what they want to do. Alex Golish and those guys very much want to be in the dance, and they're going to need to get a win here if they want to do that. Now, it's going to be very, very hard to do that. For Miami, it's about taking care of business. It's about proving to yourself, proving to the nation that you are not a team that's going to be able to get up for a Florida or get up for a Florida State, but then play down to a USF or play down to a Wake Forest. I don't even know if they play Wake Forest, but you know what I mean. There are a number of different things that I love this Miami team. I think they have every ability to go to the playoff. this would be the game where I think they would assert themselves as not only a playoff contender, but possibly a title contender if they can go into USF and fully just take care of business, win by 21 points, and look dominant while doing it. So it'll be a really fun game. I tend to believe it'll be closer than that 17 points right there, but we'll see what happens. It's going to be a really, really fun game. I just think USF has just enough to throw at Miami to keep it a little bit close in this one. And then we got Iowa, Minnesota, the battle for the Floyd of Rosedale. Absolutely love this game every time that it comes around. And if you love Big Ten football, tune into this one. The over-under is 35.5, and the under has a real shot of hitting. It's going to be an absolute rock fight. It's going to be really fun to watch this game. Minnesota's kind of been cruising along since that Week 1 win over UNC. That was pretty dramatic and had a number of different things go on in that. But I think they have a number of different things that could go good in this game. I think Minnesota's a very interesting team, and they haven't allowed a point since that game against UNC. They're a dangerous team. Iowa better come in ready to roll because we've seen what this Iowa offense is. It's better. It's not nearly where it needs to be. And if Minnesota can get a couple of takeaways, this thing becomes interesting in a season. And then for Iowa, it's all about just being able to run the ball, being able to take advantage of the clock, and being able to move on to that bye with Ohio State waiting on the other side. Because there's a reality where you lose this game, you come out of that bye, you have Ohio State waiting for you, and then your season's over before you know it. Your season's over when you blink, and you're going to have to figure out where you go from here. So a number of things that go into this game. Obviously, there's plenty of animosity here, which you absolutely love. I tend to believe that Iowa's going to get this one done, but I don't know. This is a game that I would watch very closely because I think Minnesota and Max Brosmer might be able to get this one done, and we will absolutely be updating you on Monday. But a very fun slate of games. I think there's a number that I didn't even have a chance to get to. Bowling Green is heading over to A&M this weekend. Just keep your eye on that one. Just make sure you're watching that one because that one could get interesting in a hurry. We know how good Bowling Green can be against those elite teams. We know A&M can, let those not so great teams walk in the door and take advantage of them. So we'll see what happens on that one. Very, very fun slate of games. We will obviously break them all down next week, but let's get into all the people that are under a little bit of a microscope going into this week. Players and coaches that are going into this week as a little bit bigger than any other week they've had maybe in their career, but definitely in this year thus far. So we'll break it down right after this, so stick with us.